Well, good morning, DC Diocese. I'm so sorry that this didn't work out for me to be with you all. The learning is, though, if you get removed from a meeting, which happened to me as we were prepping because my something was going on with my computer, that it is impossible to get back in. We did multiple ways to hack back into your meeting, and so the removed participants cannot return setting on Zoom. Excellent. Well done, Zoom. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that I was able to give you my presentation so that there is something for us to build off when I'm with you next week, which we will test and make sure it works. I don't understand what was going on. In any case, so I'm going to share my screen and tell you, go ahead and run my little 50-minute talk with you all. The first is this, that I do like to remind folks that ultimately, we are not being judged on how well we do Zoom meetings. We are really trying to continue just to be the church in a different way. The congregation that I serve, First Presbyterian Church of Palo Alto, we never talked about canceling services. We never did any of the idea that somehow church was ending or wasn't going to be around, but that we were simply going to be church in a different way on a different platform. And that helped folks kind of lower their anxiety about losing something, but actually we were just moving as if we were moving to the fellowship hall or we were moving somewhere else. So it's important to know that. So again, really sorry I couldn't be with you in person and live, at least on the webinar, but I do want to share some thoughts with you around some of what we're doing. Again, I'm a practitioner, head of staff at a congregation here in California. And we transitioned early on the 15th, like many, of March. It's our first service. I've not been on campus more than once or twice since then. And we've moved our entire community into Zoom. And most of our folks have made that transition. Our congregation is upper middle class, predominantly white, high tech, but older, skewed older. The reason I was called here was to try to change that. But I've been here about a year, and folks really transitioned well. We were well prepared to make this shift. We knew that it was coming and did a lot of preparation for our folks. So I wanted to give you some both, as much as I can in 15 minutes, high level and kind of land the plane ideas about how we are conducting our services. You can find them at First Presbyterian Church of Palo Alto. We record and post all the time. All right, so first is this, that I'm going to give you 4 areas. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you just Zoom better. What are some practical ways of conducting and officiating, leading, planning worship through Zoom? I want us to talk about reimagining the space. So how do we actually organize? What are some practices around worship? What are some ways that we build community outside of worship? And then what does it mean to lead this? So I'm gonna just give you 3 things. I had to try to get down to 3 things, which was really difficult to do, but this is gonna go fast. So here we go. Let me say this, that there are ways to Zoom better that aren't all that difficult to do. You don't have to be a tech wizard to do this. I know some of you may be on a steep learning curve. Others, like, this is right in your wheelhouse and you're so excited. You wanted to do this earlier and now you have a reason. But let me just offer some guidelines, and I had to pick 3, try to get down to 3 so I could fit in 15 minutes. First is this: please be consistent in your slide design. The way it looks is important. I know folks, you may not think that, or some may not want to pay attention to that, but it is. So take the time. Don't use more than 2 fonts, 2 colors, and use master slides so that there's consistency through all of your slides. This will help just to give a sense that, one, that it's tended to, that your space that you're creating is a tended to space and it's not thrown together or not thought through. Whether, that's the assumptions are not that you're not being careful, but sometimes the look in particular can be helpful. So those are just my guidelines that I give folks to simplify their slides and makes them much easier to plan. Simplify your transitions. So I know a lot of folks are using a lot of different things during their Zoom services. We go an hour, and I transition maybe 3 times between slides and people, and our hour flies by. I know some folks are going short, which is also fine. There's no good or bad way to do it, but we really do simplify our transitions, because the fewer transitions you have, whether you're using recorded or not, the better. We're a completely live service, so we don't do any recording, pre-recording. Again, that's a personal preference. That's kind of the vibe we're going for. It's not better or worse than pre-recording, but it's just how we do it. And then you got to practice those transitions over and over and over and over again, because you or somebody, they're kind of the DJ. And unlike a regular service where you're together, folks can watch. If there's a glitch, they can kind of see, okay, they're working on it. When there's a glitch online, it just feels like nothing's happening, and the anxiety builds up much faster. So simplify your transitions, practice, 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 and then be clear. I think having a good mic, your lighting, your backgrounds, what's behind you, all really important. I know that we are not conducting service from the sanctuary. I do it from my home in my backyard, but I need to make sure that my microphone and my lighting is all really well done. So you can see my setup there on the picture there. We do communion, multiple screens, multiple computers, and I brought in some professional lighting only because I'm backlit with my backyard. And you can kind of see my background in the reflection of my computer there. I do use a blue snowball mic, which is a decent, fine mic. I would encourage you to get some kind of shock mount. I love a swing arm. If you want to upgrade, the Blue Yeti is fine as well. Or the one that I'm upgrading to is called a Rode Podcaster. So that's just a matter of, if you think you're in this for a while and you want to upgrade your equipment, those are some of the things you can begin to think about. But do not underestimate the power of lighting, and make sure you're using what I would always have folks, an external microphone, so that it picks up a little bit better. All right. So about worship and prayer and creating your space. What I'm trying to encourage people is to think about reimagining space rather than replicating space. I think there is such an opportunity that is going on right now for us to reimagine what worship and prayer and community begin to look like, that you really want to avoid saying, we're just going to take the service we were doing before and move it and just do the exact same thing over here. Now, I know there's some tradition involved here. I'm Presbyterian, you're Episcopalian. So how we do all of that is going to be a little bit different, but I would still say that there are moments and times where you can begin to explore different ways of doing the same thing that you might not have been able to do in a physical space. So think about it in terms of reimagining and not just replicating, because again, the replicating feeds into this idea that it's all going to come back. We just want to do the same thing we've always done. And now you have our opportunity to try some new things. Utilize all your features that Zoom offers you. *6, *9. You're muting, your hand raising on phones. Use the raise hand piece. If your congregation is starting to get bigger, we have about 84, 85 to 100 logins. So well over 100 people there. So we really encourage folks to use the raise hand button so we can call on them during prayers of the people. Don't be afraid to use your spotlight so that you can focus on whoever is supposed to be talking if that screen is up. We encourage people to use the chat room all the time. I always say, you probably are talking in your head or you're whispering to someone anyway during worship. Go ahead and chat in the chat room. The other thing about Zoom that is really helpful is you can bring outside guests in really easily. I think that is one of the great things about this platform. If you want to do something around offering, if you want to have special music. In fact, we brought in a friend of mine who's the executive director at Calvary Women's Services, and to come into our congregation in California and talk about what they're doing, what y'all are doing in DC. And that was great. We would have never been able to have Chris out here in any other fashion. So use the platform basically to be able to enhance your particular service. And then I always give an option for people to turn on their videos or not. I know that some folks, it should not be assumed that people want to show their face, want to show their home. So always give them the option to show faces. I encourage gallery view. That's the biggest part about Zoom that folks are encouraged about, is they get to see faces that they don't get to see in worship. Even when we were meeting in face-to-face, we didn't really see them. And use your camera. So this is our community on the right-hand side on that image, sharing communion. And I encourage everybody to lift the bread up to the camera. And so there's these moments where everybody has their bread up. And so use the facility, the space, the platform in a way that's going to enhance your service. So those are 3 quick things. In terms of building community, I would want to give a couple of things. Close down the day. We do a Tuesday evening thing called Breathe, where we do, it's about 20 minutes of silence interspersed with scripture reading and a little bit of prayer. But I run that in its entirety. There's no sense of anybody has to deliver anything. It's not a meeting. It's just a time for people to be in their space, rest, center, pray. And we found that to be really helpful for the chaos of the time, emotional, spiritual, all of that. It's really important. Many people are doing happy hours or dessert gathering in check-ins. I think those are really good. I do say that those still need to be led. You have to figure out a way to focus those. So, and I just go through the boxes and ask folks to check in, but it's not just kind of a free-for-all. So, but having those community gatherings, you're trying to get to replicating what would happen on Sundays or in other times where people just got together and chatted about stuff. So try to figure out how you can do that. And then some other things that I've been involved with. You can go ahead and do variety shows or an open mic with your folks. Zoom is not ideal for music, as we all know, but it is a great facilitator of people getting together. And music, as long as everybody knows that it's not going to be high quality, then, it's fine. You can do open mics, live concerts, that kind of thing. I think it's a great, interesting opportunity for people to use Zoom. So those are a few. And then the last one would be run your meetings well. Nothing destroys community like poorly run meetings. So just as you would in real life, honor people's time and the time they've given, and start on time, end on time, be able to bring everybody in, make sure folks are included, stay on task, all these things that help to build a sense of trust and a sense that we are here and our time is being honored. I think Zoom calls in particular, because people are having so many of them, we really have to honor that time. And the great thing about Zoom is it does force you into some limitation. The extra chit chat doesn't happen as much, so you can build that time in. And so I think for building community, running your meetings well is really important. All right, the last thing I have for you is leadership. So build a worship team just like you would everywhere else. We have greeters in our chat room from the beginning. Once people are in the wait room, they start to welcome people and answer questions. We invite people to introduce themselves when they come in. We do have bouncers, so we have people that are allowed to kick folks out if we have any Zoom bombing going on. Like we inadvertently I was removed because some tech stuff, and now we couldn't get in. Check your settings. If you do remove someone, it's impossible to get in. But have some folks that are keying on what is going on in your chat room and on your screens, especially if you're getting more people than you can handle. The last one, or second last one, is have some kind of tech deacons. These are folks that you kind of allow or encourage to help other people, whether it's in the chat room, whether it's the technology. We have 3 or 4 who will be on the phone with somebody trying to get them on. We'll be in the chat room with answering any questions. We found that really helpful so that folks weren't, they didn't think I was going to do it, or, they were just abandoned, but we have folks intentionally there to help folks. And then for me, as I'm leading this, and as I talk with folks, you need to know what feeds you about this whole thing. We can't be perfect at everything. We can't love everything. We're not going to be good at everything. So know what feeds you about this process. You may be learning and not particularly proficient at some of this, but you're enjoying it. I'd say keep doing it. If that feeds your soul during this pandemic time, you should just keep doing it. Also know your limitations, though, that there is something about leading and knowing, this isn't what I do well. This isn't a strength. So know those and be able to know what you need to give away, whether on the short term or the long term. I know some congregations are kind of in this initial kind of chaotic, adrenaline-driven time, and now you're into some normalcy. Well, what does this look like long term? I'll talk about that next week. But what does it look like to do this long term? Most of the practices that we have probably right now as leadership are not sustainable. So as communities begin to discover what the new normal will be, the more you can strip away from those things that maybe don't feed you, aren't good use of your time, the more you can do that, the better. And then lastly, I would say around the leadership piece is this: take a Sunday off. I went straight through 8, I don't know how many Sundays, it felt like forever. And I love this, and I love the community I'm serving, and I want to be with them. But know that for the long-term health of the church and myself, I need to take a complete day off, not just have a guest preacher, but actually take the whole time off, let it go without you, I unplugged completely for 2 days, and I didn't even know how tired I was. So I think that if you haven't found some space to take a Sunday off, especially if you're leading this production and a facilitation, and you're kind of the DJ for your worship service, I just think we have no idea how tired we probably are. So really encourage you to take some time off. All right, I think I'm right at about 50 minutes though. So if you have any questions, feel free to get to me. The best way to get to me with questions is B Reyes-Chow. And I will put the link to the slides. I'll upload these slides and put them in the link down in the notes on the YouTube channel here. And I will look forward to seeing you next week on the 27th, where we'll talk more about hybridizing our congregation. So again, apologies that I could not be with you live. Very frustrating for all of us, but here we are. We adapt and we figure it out, and still able to hopefully give you some content that might be useful. Again, thanks for having me, and I will see you next week.